The glass doors of the crowded business plaza swung open as people rushed around in the bright afternoon sun, unaware that in the next few seconds everything would change. A woman in an elegant navy suit suddenly staggered near the entrance steps. Her phone slipped from her hand, her breathing turned sharp and uneven, and then she collapsed onto the marble floor. Panic erupted instantly. Someone shouted, "She's not breathing." Another voice screamed for help, but no one seemed to know what to do. In the middle of that chaos, a quiet man standing near the curb froze for a second, staring at the woman lying motionless. He looked like someone the busy crowd might overlook, a tired single father holding a small grocery bag and wearing worn-out shoes. But what he did next would change two lives forever. Before we continue this powerful story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Whisper Tales 3 if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet heroes who walk among us every day. The man's name was Arman Hale, a construction worker who had finished his morning shift early that day. Life had not been gentle with him. 5 years earlier, his wife had passed away suddenly, leaving him to raise their young daughter alone. Since then, every day had been a battle between work, parenting, and survival. Arman rarely complained, but the weight of responsibility had carved silent lines into his face. That afternoon he had stopped by the plaza only to pick up some discounted groceries before heading home to his daughter, who would soon return from school. When Arman saw the woman collapse, instinct took over. He rushed through the circle of stunned bystanders and knelt beside her. Her skin had turned pale and her chest wasn't moving. People around him whispered nervously, some pulling out their phones, others simply watching in shock. Arman quickly checked for a pulse and realized she was in cardiac arrest. Without hesitation he began performing CPR, pressing his hands firmly against her chest while counting under his breath. The sounds of the busy street faded around him as his focus narrowed to the fragile rhythm of life he was trying desperately to restore. Minutes felt like hours. The woman's body remained limp while the crowd watched anxiously. Arman's arms trembled with exhaustion, but he refused to stop. He remembered the emergency training he had taken years earlier at a construction safety workshop, something he never imagined he would need like this. Finally, just as a security guard ran toward them with an emergency defibrillator, the woman suddenly gasped. Her chest lifted sharply, and a faint breath escaped her lips. Relief rippled through the crowd. Someone called an ambulance while others knelt closer in disbelief. The woman's eyes fluttered slightly, though she remained weak and disoriented. Arman quietly leaned back, wiping sweat from his forehead. He looked around for a moment, making sure she was breathing steadily. When the sirens of the approaching ambulance echoed down the street, he slowly stood up. Few people noticed when Arman picked up his grocery bag and walked away. The woman he had saved was Valeria Kincaid, the powerful CEO of one of the city's largest technology firms. Known for her sharp decisions and relentless work ethic, Valeria had built her company from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Yet behind her success was a life of constant pressure, sleepless nights, and ignored health warnings. That afternoon, after a long meeting and hours of stress, her heart had simply given out. When Valeria woke later in the hospital, she was surrounded by concerned executives and doctors. They explained what had happened, how she had collapsed outside her office building and nearly died. But there was one detail she kept asking about: the man who had saved her life. No one knew who he was. Security cameras showed him performing CPR with calm determination, but by the time the ambulance arrived, he had disappeared into the crowd. For days afterward, Valeria couldn't stop thinking about him. The man hadn't stayed for recognition, praise, or reward. He had simply helped a stranger and vanished. Something about that quiet act of humanity stirred a feeling inside her that years of business success never had. Determined to find him, Valeria asked her team to track the footage from nearby cameras. Eventually they spotted Arman walking down a side street carrying a grocery bag toward a modest neighborhood several blocks away. When Valeria's assistant located the small apartment building where he lived, she decided to visit personally. The next afternoon, Valeria stood outside a faded apartment door, feeling oddly nervous. When Arman opened the door, he looked surprised to see a sharply dressed woman standing in the hallway. Behind him, a young girl sat at a tiny kitchen table doing her homework. Valeria recognized him instantly. The same calm eyes. The same quiet presence. For a moment neither of them spoke. Then Valeria simply thanked him, not with corporate formality, but with genuine emotion. She explained that he had saved her life and that she wanted to help him in any way she could. Arman listened politely, but his expression remained humble and steady. To him, he had only done what any decent person should do. Valeria noticed the small apartment, the worn furniture, and the careful way Arman's daughter looked at him with admiration. She realized that this man, who had almost nothing, possessed something far more valuable than the power and wealth she had spent her life chasing. From that day forward, their lives slowly changed. Valeria offered Arman a position at her company, not out of charity, but because she trusted the character she had seen in him. With stable work and new opportunities, Arman was finally able to give his daughter the future he had always dreamed of for her, yet the greatest transformation happened inside Valeria herself. The experience reminded her that success meant little without compassion. She began investing in community programs, supporting workers, and building a company culture rooted in humanity rather than profit alone. Years later, people would often hear the story of how a powerful CEO's life was saved by a quiet single father who walked away without expecting anything in return. It became a reminder that true heroes rarely seek attention, they simply act when kindness is needed most. Before we close this story, here is a special request. Comment below with the word kindness if you believe small acts of humanity can change lives forever, and if this story touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps keep stories like this alive on Whisper Tales 3, where every whisper holds a powerful human truth, because sometimes the people who save lives are the ones the world almost never notices.